The most influential figures in history leave monuments that echo for centuries after. Alexander's conquered kingdoms, Caesar's inscriptions, Tutankhamun's golden tomb. But what if the greatest leader of the ancient world simply vanished? No one knows his burial place to this day. With that astonishing declaration, the Hebrew Bible drops one of history's most explosive mysteries. The traditional dating places these events somewhere in the late Bronze Age, though scholars debate the exact timeline and whether they occurred at all. After liberating his people from Egyptian slavery, confronting the might of Pharaoh, receiving divine law on a smoke-wreathed mountain, and wandering the desert for 40 years, Moses, the most transformative figure of the ancient Near East, simply disappears from human history. Here on Mount Nebo in what is now Jordan, a 120-year-old man with eyes still burning with prophetic fire gazes across the Jordan River toward a promised homeland he will never enter. After 4 decades leading a nation through wilderness, Moses has reached his final destination. What happens next defies all conventions of ancient hero narratives. While Egyptian pharaohs built towering pyramids to house their remains, while Mesopotamian kings were entombed with treasures and servants, while Greek heroes received sacred shrines and offerings, Moses would experience something utterly unprecedented. The text offers just one cryptic line. He, God, buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no man knows the place of his burial to this day. The creator of the universe personally acts as Moses' undertaker, laying him in an unmarked grave that has remained hidden for over 3,000 years. No monument, no shrine, no pilgrimage site, just wilderness and mystery. Why would ancient writers deny their greatest hero the tomb every other civilization granted its champions? What revolutionary idea was being born in this deliberate act of concealment? What happens when we compare this unique ending with the death narratives of heroes across other ancient cultures? In this video, we plunge into one of history's most profound enigmas, a mystery that spans continents and thousands of years, challenges our understanding of heroism and divinity, and continues to shape how billions conceive of death, legacy, and worship. This isn't merely about how a prophet died. It's about the birth of an idea that would change civilization forever. The story of Moses' final moments appears at the very end of the Torah, the 5 books that form the foundation of Jewish scripture. Deuteronomy 34 provides our only account of this pivotal event, and its brevity is striking. We're told that Moses, at the remarkable age of 120 years, climbs Mount Nebo to the peak called Pisgah. There, God grants him a panoramic vision of the Promised Land, the culmination of a journey that began decades earlier with the Exodus from Egypt. The text tells us, "Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab according to the word of the Lord." What happens next is extraordinary. In a mere handful of words, the Bible presents something not seen before. He, God, buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no man knows the place of his burial to this day. I want you to consider the astonishing implications. The creator of the universe personally serves as Moses' undertaker. The greatest prophet in Israel's history receives no monument, no shrine, no marked grave, just earth and obscurity. Biblical scholars like Thomas Romer believe this final chapter may combine multiple traditions, one where Moses dies on the mountain, another burying him in a valley, and a third simply stating no one knows the grave. The redactor's solution was elegantly mysterious and left ambiguous. Moses went up the mountain, died, was buried somewhere below, and ultimately, no one knows where. Critics have long noted the oddity of Moses narrating his own death. Ancient rabbis reasoned that Joshua must have written this epilogue, or that Moses wrote it prophetically with tears in his eyes. Modern scholars more bluntly observe these verses were clearly written by a later hand. But why emphasize that no one knows the burial place? What purpose could this serve? Many scholars believe the answer lies in Israel's religious revolution. As Christine Hayes explains, this mysterious ending likely served a specific theological purpose: to prevent Moses' grave from becoming a site of idolatrous veneration. In a world where ancestors and heroes were often worshipped at their tombs, Moses' hidden grave makes a powerful statement. Israel would honor its greatest prophet not through relics or shrines, but through his teachings. The Bible concludes by emphasizing Moses' unparalleled prophetic status. There has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Yet even this greatest of prophets vanishes into the earth, leaving only his words behind. This tension between extraordinary stature and physical disappearance would fascinate later generations. If the biblical account seems sparse, those who came after would waste no time filling in the gaps. The Bible's terse account of Moses' death left many questions unanswered, a vacuum that later traditions rushed to fill with colorful elaborations. One of the most dramatic appears in the New Testament's Epistle of Jude, which mentions a startling postscript to Moses' burial. Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, disputed about the body of Moses. This wild fragment reveals a whole cosmic drama that unfolded after Moses' death. According to this tradition, Satan himself tried to claim Moses' body, only to be rebuffed by the archangel Michael. What was the devil after? Later commentators suggested Satan wanted either to accuse this great man of sin or to spur idolatry by revealing a shrine. Either way, the archangelic intervention prevented that, and Moses' body remained hidden from both human and demonic eyes. This strange anecdote comes not from the Hebrew Bible, but from a lost apocryphal work called The Assumption of Moses. Ancient writers like Origen referenced this tradition, showing it was part of widespread Jewish lore by the 3rd century of the Common Era. Even in death, it seems, Moses remained a battlefield between good and evil. His body literally contested between heaven and hell. Other legends focus on Moses' reluctance to die. The 1st century historian Josephus embellishes that Moses went to his death with tears, beseeching God for more life. Later rabbinic traditions take this further. They depict Moses arguing with the angel of death or summoning Adam from the grave to demand answers about mortality. You have given your sons over to weeping and wailing. Oh, why did you rebel and cause death to enter the world? In these legends, Moses becomes every man, raging against death itself. Quite a dramatic flourish compared to the Bible's stoic silence. The rabbis imagine Moses fighting his fate to the very end, until God must personally convince or even carry him off. What all these later developments share is recognition that Moses' biblical death leaves narrative tension, an unresolved mystery that invited further myth-making. Later generations, uncomfortable with the vacuum, filled it with imaginative answers. Maybe Moses ascended to heaven. Maybe there was a cosmic battle over his body. But notably, none of these embellishments made it into the Hebrew Bible's final version. The canonical story remains eerily curt about Moses' disappearance, as if inviting us to ponder its meaning rather than providing easy answers. In this, Moses' mysterious end stands in stark contrast to how other ancient cultures treated their greatest heroes and leaders. To understand the revolutionary nature of Moses' hidden grave, we must journey beyond Israel to the wider ancient world. Moses' mysterious end finds echoes across the mythologies of the ancient world. Tales of heroes who die under peculiar circumstances, vanish mysteriously, or ascend to heaven appear in cultures spanning from Mesopotamia to China. Let's begin in the land between the rivers, Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization. Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk, provides our first contrast. After failing his quest for immortality, Gilgamesh receives a magnificent burial beneath the diverted Euphrates River. Unlike Moses, Gilgamesh's resting place was known and honored. Moreover, the ancient Mesopotamians worshipped Gilgamesh as a demigod in the afterlife. He became a cult figure of worship during the Old Akkadian period. But Mesopotamia also offers cases of heroes who avoid ordinary burial. The Sumerian king list records of one king, Etana of Kish. He was the one who ascended to heaven and consolidated all the lands. Etana's legend tells how he flew to heaven on an eagle's back, seeking the plant of birth. This represents a true apotheosis story, millennia before similar tales would emerge elsewhere. The contrast with Moses is revealing. While both Moses and figures like Etana leave the world in supernatural ways, Moses definitely dies first. His story rejects the pattern of physical immortality or deification so common in neighboring cultures. Moving to Egypt, we enter a civilization obsessed with tombs and the afterlife. Egyptian pharaohs invested vast resources in elaborate burial complexes and mummification to preserve their bodies for eternity. By Moses' era, Egyptian royalty were interred in the Valley of the Kings, tombs intentionally hidden in desert cliffs to thwart grave robbers. These tombs were meant to be secret in location but magnificent in design. One might whimsically call Moses' burial God's own Valley of the Kings moment, God acting as high priest to Moses, burying him in secret grave. But the purposes differ dramatically. Egyptians hid tombs to preserve bodies for the afterlife. Moses' grave was hidden to prevent any cult from forming around his remains. The Greek world offers even closer parallels. Consider Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome. According to Roman historians, Romulus disappeared during a violent storm while reviewing his troops. After a reign of 37 years, Romulus was suddenly swept away from the eyes of men. Some think the senators murdered him. Others believe the gods are on their side, a reason for the people to view Romulus as divine rather than murdered. Afterward, Romans claimed Romulus had become the god Quirinus. His vanished body became proof of divine favor, the exact opposite of how Israel interpreted Moses' missing grave. Another striking example comes from the Greek tragedy of Oedipus at Colonus. The aged, blind Oedipus is led to a sacred grove where, with only King Theseus as witness, he mysteriously disappears. The earth swallows him or the gods take him. Theseus swears never to reveal the spot, which becomes a secret blessing protecting Athens. Like Moses, Oedipus receives a hidden grave known to just one witness. But while Oedipus's hidden grave magically protects a city, Moses' hidden grave protects Israel from the temptation of hero worship. Venturing eastward to China, we encounter the Yellow Emperor Hengdi. Huangdi, legendary founder of Chinese civilization. After ruling for a century, legends say a dragon descended to carry him to heaven. After accomplishing the founding of civilization, he was carried off by a dragon and became an immortal figure watching over China. When his ministers searched for his body, they found only his empty clothes, perhaps the earliest empty tomb narrative. Unlike Moses, however, the Yellow Emperor was openly revered as a deity, with temples built to honor his ascension. What emerges from this cross-cultural survey is remarkable. The missing body theme appears across many civilizations, but its interpretation varies dramatically. Sometimes it implies deification, as with Romulus or the Yellow Emperor. Other times, it serves to protect the community, as with Oedipus. In Moses' case, the hidden grave serves a unique theological purpose. It reinforces Israel's rejection of hero cults and ancestor worship. The absence of a tomb reflects not Moses' divinity, but Israel's fidelity to a God who tolerates no rivals, not even from his greatest prophet. As scholar Jan Assmann might put it, this represents a mosaic distinction in death rituals. While other cultures built monuments, shrines, and cults around their heroes' remains, Israel chose to remember Moses through his teachings alone. The revolutionary message is clear. Even the greatest human must disappear so that only God and his law remain. The mysterious death of Moses stands at a fascinating crossroads of myth, religion, and cultural memory. Through comparative analysis, we can see how this mysterious ending both embraces and subverts the mythic patterns of the ancient world. Psychoanalyst Otto Rank identified what he called the hero pattern in mythology, a recurring sequence of life events shared by legendary figures across cultures. Heroes often experience mysterious births, exile, miraculous deeds, and frequently ambiguous deaths or disappearances. Moses scores remarkably high on this scale. His perilous infancy, set adrift in the Nile like Sargon of Akkad was floated in the Euphrates, his exile, his confrontation with Pharaoh, and finally his mysterious death and unknown grave all fit the classic hero archetype. Yet, as scholars like Philip Wagenbaum suggest, this is likely no coincidence. The biblical authors were sophisticated narrators who understood the power of these motifs while repurposing them for monotheistic ends. Joseph Campbell famously described the hero's journey pattern, a universal story structure where heroes answer a call to adventure, face trials, achieve transformation, and return with wisdom. In Campbell's schema, many hero stories include an apotheosis stage where the hero transcends ordinary existence. Moses experiences a figurative apotheosis, ascending Nebo, and in his final moments drawing closer to God than any human before him. Yet critically, he remains mortal. The text emphasizes that Moses died and is buried, not deified or physically immortalized. This tension between elevation and mortality makes Moses' end unique and rises above other prophets in stature, but not in ontological status. While heroes like Heracles burn away their mortality to become gods, Moses must embrace death fully, though with God as his caretaker. What purpose does this serve? Scholars like Thomas Romer suggest the authors of Deuteronomy likely knew hero cults were common. Perhaps even a cult of Moses existed in some circles. By writing "No one knows the burial place," they effectively shut down that possibility in the national narrative. The message is revolutionary. Moses' legacy should live in his teachings, not in relics or monuments. As Christine Hayes notes, this ending ensures no human institution competes with the law. Moses dies off stage, as it were, and the story immediately pivots to Joshua and Israel's future. This narrative choice aligns with broader patterns in Israel's religious development. Tikva Freimer-Kensky has shown how Israel diverged from its neighbors by eliminating ancestor worship and the cult of the dead, demoting deceased heroes to mere memory rather than objects of veneration. The hidden grave of Moses perfectly embodies this ethos. He cannot be venerated as an ancestor or local deity because no one can locate his remains. Richard Elliott Friedman suggests another profound dimension. By the end of the Torah, God's visible presence begins to diminish. God buries Moses and then, in subsequent biblical books, becomes less directly manifest in human affairs. It's as if with Moses' burial, an era of direct divine intervention concludes. Moses' hidden grave symbolizes the hiddenness of God that Israel will experience going forward. Both God and Moses disappear at the end of Deuteronomy, leaving Israel to carry on with the text and teachings alone. This transforms how cultural memory functions. Jan Assmann notes that Egyptian memory operated through monuments and mummies, concrete physical anchors for remembrance. Biblical Israel, by contrast, developed memory through texts and rituals. Moses' absence became as significant as his presence. By leaving no physical tomb, his legacy remained malleable in the realm of story and interpretation. Moses became many things to many people, lawgiver prophet, even quasi-mystical figure, precisely because he had no fixed shrine pinning him to one location or role. Within biblical Israel, the effect was to focus all authority and sanctity on the Torah, not on a relic. In anthropological terms, Israel shifted from a cult of ancestors to a cult of revelation. Moses' burial was secret, but his tombstone was effectively the Torah scroll. As the book of Deuteronomy has Moses say, "Take this book of the law and place it by the ark, that it may be a witness for you." The witness to Moses is the book, not a grave marker. This radical shift would reverberate through history, influencing how future monotheistic religions would conceive of legacy and remembrance. Today, visitors to Mount Nebo in Jordan can stand where tradition says Moses gazed upon the promised land. A memorial church marks the site, though no one claims it contains Moses' actual remains. But the deeper question remains, was there ever a historical Moses to be buried at all? Modern archaeology and biblical scholarship have transformed our understanding of the Moses narrative. After more than a century of extensive excavations throughout the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, and the Levant, archaeologists have found no physical evidence corroborating the mass exodus described in biblical texts. Israel Finkelstein, renowned archaeologist at Tel Aviv University, puts it bluntly: the Exodus narrative reached its final form during the 7th to 6th centuries BCE, over 500 years after the events it purports to describe. The archaeological record shows no evidence of a large-scale migration from Egypt, no trace of 40 years of wandering, and no sudden conquest of Canaan. What we're witnessing in the Moses story, according to contemporary scholars, is not history, but mythology. Powerful cultural narratives that shape Israel's national identity. The story likely evolved from smaller historical events, perhaps involving some Semitic groups leaving Egypt, combined with native Canaanite populations who developed a revolutionary religious identity. The search for Moses' body has become archaeology's greatest wild goose chase, though at least with geese, we're sure they existed. It's like organizing an expedition to find Gandalf's staff, or holding a seance to speak with Harry Potter's owl. When your toughest challenge isn't just finding a needle in a haystack, but determining if the needle was ever there to begin with, it might be time to reconsider your research grant. As Thomas Romer and other critical scholars have demonstrated, the final version of the Pentateuch came together during or after, probably after, the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE, a period when scattered Israelites urgently needed unifying national mythology. The missing grave of Moses isn't a historical mystery. It's a brilliant literary device serving specific theological and political purposes. Yet understanding the mythological nature of these narratives doesn't diminish their cultural importance. Billions still find meaning in these stories. Jews revere Moses as the great lawgiver. Christians see him as a forerunner to Jesus. Muslims honor him as Musa in the Quran. The power of the Moses narrative lies precisely in its mythic status. By applying critical thinking to these stories, asking not just where is Moses buried, but was there a historical Moses as described in the Bible? We gain deeper insight into how humans create meaning through narrative. Throughout human history, we've built monuments to figures who may never have existed historically as described. From King Arthur to Romulus to Heracles or Hercules, these stories shape cultures regardless of their historical accuracy. Moses' non-existent grave is the perfect symbol of this phenomenon. We seek physical evidence for what are essentially spiritual and cultural constructs. The enduring legacy of Moses isn't found in archaeological evidence, but in the revolutionary concepts associated with his mythology: monotheism, covenant, written law, and human dignity. His greatest monument isn't a tomb, but the intellectual and ethical traditions that emerged from the narratives attributed to him. In an age seeking both scientific understanding and meaningful narrative, the Moses story challenges us to hold two truths simultaneously. These ancient accounts are unlikely to be historically accurate as written, yet they have shaped human consciousness more profoundly than many documented historical events. No one knows his burial place to this day because the most powerful cultural forces often transcend physical evidence entirely.